The guard at my own graduation celebration said I wasn't on the list. Then I heard my mother introducing my sister as the summa cum laude there. Can you imagine the gut-wrenching feeling of being locked out of your own celebration? I showed up to my graduation party, cap and gown still on, diploma clutched in my hand, only to be told my name wasn't on the list. But the real shock? Hearing my mother announce my sister as the graduate, as the summa cum laude. What the hell happened next? You won't believe it. I mean, there I was standing outside the fancy Brereslin event hall, still in my cap and gown. My classmates were literally streaming past the velvet rope, laughing, celebrating, and the bouncer, a guy my age, just kept shaking his head at me. Sorry, miss, you're not on the list. I just stared at him, dumbfounded. But this is my graduation party. I'm graduating today. I just gave the valedictorian speech like 2 hours ago. He just shrugged, pointing to his tablet. No Jade Winters on here. Must be some mistake. Call whoever's organizing this. My heart was pounding. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, and called my mom. On the third ring, she picked up, music and laughter blasting in the background. Mom, I practically yelled over the noise. I'm outside. They won't let me in. There's something wrong with the list. She sounded so carefree. Oh, sweetie, where are you? I told you the party started at 7 o'clock. It's only 6:30. My jaw clenched. No, Mom. I'm literally outside right now watching everyone go in. Tommy just walked past me. So did Emily from my economics class. There was this weird, pregnant pause. Then she says with an almost dismissive tone, must be the staff party. Your party is in the Roosevelt room. Different entrance. Go around back. Okay, fine. My frustration was building, but I was still trying to make sense of it. I walked all the way around to the rear entrance. Another bouncer, another tablet, another infuriating headshake. No, Jade Winters. My stomach dropped. A cold dread started to creep in. I called Mom again, my voice tight. The Roosevelt room bouncer says I'm not on that list either. She actually laughed, a bright, airy sound that made my blood run cold. Honey, you're being silly. Just come to the main ballroom. I'll meet you there. The main ballroom was hosting a wedding. A wedding. I stood there in my cap and gown, watching a bride and groom cut their cake through the doorway. It was surreal. Absolutely, utterly surreal. Then my phone buzzed. It was Kelsey, my roommate. Where are you? Your mom is giving a speech about you. A knot of dread formed in my chest. I called Kelsey immediately. Put me on speaker so I can hear. Through the phone, faint but clear, I heard my mother's voice echoing over a microphone. So proud of my daughter today. She's worked so hard these 4 years. We've all sacrificed so much to get her here, especially her sister Haley, who gave up her own dreams. Kelsey whispered into the phone, her voice laced with confusion. Jade, why is she talking about you like you're dead or something? And why does Haley have your honor cords on? My heart stopped. My honor cords? I hung up on Kelsey, my fingers fumbling as I called Haley. She answered, laughing, totally oblivious. Hey, superstar. Mom says you're running late to your own party. My voice was tight, barely a whisper. Haley, why are you wearing my honor cords? What honor cords? She asked, the laughter still in her voice. The ones I earned for summa cum laude. You're wearing them. Kelsey just told me. There was this heavy, damning silence. Then Haley's voice got quiet, small. Mom said you wanted me to wear them for the photos since I didn't get to finish college. After my accident. Haley had dropped out sophomore year after a car accident, but she'd been fine for 2 years now. This wasn't about sympathy. I took a deep breath. Haley, I need you to tell me exactly what Mom told you about tonight. Her confession spilled out, hesitant at first, then gaining speed. Mom said you felt guilty about me not graduating, so you wanted to share your special day. Let me represent the family at the official party while you went to the smaller gathering. That's why she put my name on the graduation program instead. What graduation program? I asked, my voice rising, my blood running cold. The one they're handing out at the party. It has my photo where yours should be, says Haley Winters, Bachelor of Arts in Economics. A tidal wave of disbelief and anger washed over me. I ran back to the main entrance, my cap and gown flapping around me, a frantic energy seizing me. The bouncer from earlier was still there. I need to ask you something. I gasped, completely out of breath. Is there a Haley Winters on your list? He scrolled through his tablet. Yeah, checked in 40 minutes ago. Table 12, VIP section. I took out my student ID, then my actual diploma I'd received hours earlier, then the official graduation photo on my phone. That's me, Jade Winters. Now, look at your list. Does it say Haley Winters graduated today? He looked incredibly uncomfortable, shifting his weight. Miss, I just checked names. Your mom specifically said not to let anyone claiming to be Jade Winters inside. Said there might be confusion. Confusion? She's trying to give my graduation to my sister. The bouncer fidgeted, looking around nervously. Listen, that's family business. But she was very clear, even showed me a photo of you, so I'd recognize you. Told me you'd agreed to celebrate separately to avoid drama with extended family who favored Haley. Some issue about the accident settlement money paying for your college. I stood there, rooted to the spot in my cap and gown holding my diploma. Inside, my mother was erasing 4 years of my life, my achievements, my identity. My phone buzzed again. Kelsey, your mom just called you up for the graduate toast. Haley's walking up to the microphone. She's thanking everyone for supporting her through her educational journey. My phone rang. It was Mom. Sweetie, we're taking family photos now. Haley really needs this for her confidence. You understand, right? I ended the call. My whole body was shaking with a raw, visceral anger I'd never felt before. People in suits and dresses walked past me into the building, some giving me weird looks. The bouncer was staring at his tablet, pretending I didn't exist. But I did. Oh, I definitely existed. I opened my email, scrolled until I found the message from the dean's office. Official announcement. Jade Winters selected as valedictorian. My photo right there at the top. I walked back to the bouncer, holding my phone up to his face. He glanced at it, then looked away, trying to avoid my gaze. I moved my phone so it was directly in his line of sight again. This is the official university announcement. That's me, my name, my photo. He shifted his weight, his face turning red with discomfort. I understand, miss, but my instructions are very clear. The person who paid for this event told me not to let you inside. I pulled out my actual diploma, the one they handed me on stage 3 hours ago. I held it up next to my student ID, next to the email on my phone. The bouncer wouldn't even look. I'm sorry. I can't help you. This is between you and your family. I took a step back. I snapped a photo of him with his tablet. Then a photo of the entrance, the banner that said, "Congratulations, graduates." Then a photo of my diploma in front of the building. I was done being erased. I was done pretending this was okay. If my mother wanted to steal my graduation, I was going to document every single second of it. My phone was already open, so I started taking more photos. The guest list on his tablet, the door, the velvet rope, everything. You can't take photos of my screen, he stammered, holding up a hand. I already did, I said, a cold edge to my voice, taking another photo of his annoyed face. He started to say something else, but I was already walking away, my fingers flying across my phone screen. I called Kelsey back. She answered on the first ring, her voice laced with worry. Are you inside yet? No, they still won't let me in. Listen, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Okay, what? She asked. Start recording video of what's happening in there. Speeches, presentations, everything. Especially anything involving Haley or my mom. Kelsey was quiet for a second, the gravity of my request sinking in. Oh my God, you think this is really happening? It is happening. I'm standing outside my own party right now. Just record everything you can. Okay, I'm on it, she said, her voice grim. Half our friends are already confused about why Haley is up there instead of you. Everyone keeps asking where you are. Just keep recording. I'll explain everything later. I hung up, my mind a whirlwind of anger and a strange, cold resolve. My messages were blowing up. Tommy had texted twice. Emily sent a photo of the fake program with Haley's face on it. 3 other classmates were asking why I wasn't at my own party. I looked up and saw Tommy pushing through the crowd, coming back outside. His face was a mixture of confusion and pure rage. Jade, what the hell? Why are you still out here? They won't let me in. What do you mean they won't let you in? It's your party. Tell that to the bouncer. Tommy stormed over to the security guy, his voice booming with indignation. Why isn't she on the list? This is Jade Winters. She literally gave the valedictorian speech this morning. The bouncer did that same uncomfortable shoulder thing. I have my instructions, sir. Tommy pulled out his phone, his face aghast. This is insane. He started typing furiously. What are you doing? I asked, watching his thumbs fly. Posting in the group chat. Everyone needs to know about this. Within seconds, my phone started vibrating like crazy. Text after text after text. The screen filled up with messages. Where are you? Why aren't you inside? Is this true? What's happening? More people started coming outside. Classmates I'd known for 4 years, people from my study groups, friends from the dorms. They all had their phones out, looking confused and utterly pissed off. My hands were still shaking, but my mind felt clear, focused. I opened each message and took a screenshot. Then I opened the photos Kelsey was sending me from inside. Haley standing at a microphone, wearing my gold honor cords. My mother next to her, arm around Haley's shoulders. The fake program with Haley's photo. I saved every single one. My fingers moved, capturing everything, creating a folder of evidence that this was real, that this actually happened. The shaking made it hard to tap the buttons, but I forced myself to slow down, to be careful. Every screenshot had to be clear. Every photo had to be saved. This was my graduation. These were my achievements, and I was going to prove it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Jade, it's Monica from Economics. I'm inside, and something really weird is happening. Your mom keeps talking about Haley like she's the graduate, and I saw the program, and I don't understand what's going on. Another call came through, then another. I let them all go to voicemail and kept screenshotting. Every confused text, every photo of Haley in my honor cords, every question from classmates who knew something was wrong. The evidence folder on my phone grew bigger and bigger. My mother wanted to erase me, but I was making sure there would be a permanent record of what she tried to do. The door opened and Emily came outside. She walked straight to me, wrapping her arms around me without saying anything. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. I'm leaving. This is messed up. Several other people followed her out. They stood around me on the sidewalk, some on their phones, some just looking angry. This isn't right. We all saw you graduate. We heard your speech. You earned this. I felt something in my chest loosen a little. These people knew the truth. They saw it with their own eyes. My mother could lie to family members who weren't there, but she couldn't lie to the 200 students who watched me walk across that stage this morning. More classmates came outside, asking what was going on. The crowd on the sidewalk got bigger. People were talking loud, some of them filming on their phones, everyone looking confused and mad. I held up my hand. Don't cause a scene yet. I need to handle this the right way. But Jade, this is crazy. We should go in there and tell everyone what's happening. No, I said, my voice firm, my gaze meeting theirs. I need you all to stay inside and be witnesses. Document everything. Take photos and videos. Watch what happens. I'm going to deal with this, but I need evidence first, not drama." Several people nodded and went back inside. Emily squeezed my hand before following them. Tommy stayed outside with me. "I'm not going back in there. This is wrong on every level." "I know, but I need people inside to see what she's doing." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded and walked back toward the entrance. The bouncer let him through, without checking the list this time. My legs felt like jelly, my graduation gown tangling around my knees. I walked across the parking lot to my car, needing a moment to breathe. I got in the driver's seat, phone on the dashboard. I opened my laptop and went to the university website. The registrar's page loaded slow, the little circle spinning, mocking me. Finally it opened. I logged into my student account. My official transcript was right there. For years of grades, Dean's List every semester, summa cum laude at the bottom. I downloaded it, saved it to a new folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. Then I found my diploma verification in the graduation portal and downloaded that too. Photos from the ceremony where I walked across the stage and shook the president's hand. My valedictorian speech text that I had submitted to the communications office. Every single document that proved I was the one who graduated today. I created a folder with everything organized by date and type. My hands finally stopped shaking as I worked through each file, making sure nothing was missing, double-checking that every link worked and every photo was clear. My phone buzzed. A new video from Kelsey. I opened it. My mother stood at a microphone, holding a glass of champagne. The audio was clear, even through the phone. So proud of my daughter's achievement today. She worked so hard for this. We all sacrificed so much to get her here. The camera panned, and there was Haley, standing next to her, wearing my gold honor cords over a nice dress. My mother put her arm around Haley, raising her glass higher. "To my graduate." Everyone in the video raised their glasses to Haley. I watched it 3 times. Then I had to put my phone down on the passenger seat and close my eyes and breathe. The rage was so big I couldn't think around it. My whole body felt hot. My chest hurt. I sat there in my car in my cap and gown, breathing slow through my nose until I could think clearly again. Then I picked up my phone and saved the video to my evidence folder. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Professor Rivera. She was my academic advisor, and she'd been at the graduation ceremony that morning. She'd hugged me after my speech, told me she was proud. I pressed call. She answered after 2 rings. "Jade, congratulations again. Your speech was wonderful." "Professor Rivera," I said, my voice cracking, "I need help. Something really bad is happening." Her voice changed immediately, sharp with concern. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I explained everything. The party, the bouncer, the fake program, Haley wearing my honor cords, my mother announcing her as the graduate. Professor Rivera didn't say anything for a long time after I finished. Then she said a word I'd never heard her say before. "I'm horrified. This is absolutely unacceptable. I was there this morning. I watched you graduate. I heard your speech. You earned summa cum laude." "I know," I said, tears starting to fall. "But my mom is telling everyone it was Haley. She made programs with Haley's name on them. She's erasing me completely." "I'll provide written verification of everything," she said, her voice firm with conviction. "Your academic standing, your honors, your valedictorian status. I'll write a detailed letter tonight and send it to you first thing in the morning." "Thank you," I whispered, relief washing over me. I didn't know what else to do. "You did exactly the right thing by calling me. Document everything, Jade. Every photo, every video, every witness. This is serious, and you're going to need proof." "I'm already doing that." "Good. And Jade, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. You deserved better. You deserve to celebrate your achievement, not fight to prove it exists. I thanked her and hung up. Then I opened my email and waited. The notification came through 15 minutes later. Professor Rivera's letter was 3 pages long, detailing every single one of my achievements, my GPA, my honors, my valedictorian status, the date and time I gave my speech. She even included a paragraph about how she'd personally watched me walk across the stage and shake the university president's hand. At the bottom, she wrote that she was available to provide testimony if needed, and that the university took academic fraud extremely seriously. I saved the letter to my evidence folder and backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Then I started my car and drove away from Brereslin Event Hall, leaving that nightmare behind. The drive to my apartment took 20 minutes. I kept checking my mirrors like someone might follow me, even though I knew that was silly. Nobody even knew I'd left. Kelsey texted again, asking if I was okay, telling me the party was breaking up early. A lot of people left after they realized something weird was going on. Some of them kept asking her where I was, and she didn't know what to tell them. I texted back that I was fine at home, and I'd explain everything tomorrow. My apartment was quiet and dark when I got inside. My roommate was still at the party. I turned on all the lights, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The evidence folder was already there, waiting. I created a new document and started typing. Timeline of events. Then I went through everything that had happened today, from the moment I woke up this morning. What time I got to the graduation ceremony. What time I gave my speech. What time I received my diploma. What time I arrived at Brereslin Event Hall. What time the bouncer turned me away. Every single phone call with timestamps from my call log. Every text message screenshot, every photo. I wrote down exactly what each person said to me, and when they said it. The bouncer's words about my mother showing him my photo and telling him to keep me out. My mother's lies about different rooms and different entrances. Haley's confession about the fake programs with her name on them. Professor Rivera's phone call and her letter. By the time I finished, it was after midnight, and the document was 12 pages long. I added all the photos Kelsey had sent me of Haley wearing my honor cords, the video of my mother's toast, screenshots of the class group chat where people were asking why I wasn't at my own party. I organized everything by category and time. Then I printed 2 copies and put them in folders. One for me and one for whoever might need to see it later. My phone buzzed. It was Kelsey coming home. She walked into my room without knocking and just hugged me for a long time without saying anything. Then she sat on my bed and told me what happened after I left. How people started asking questions. How my mother got defensive and angry. How Haley looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. How the party ended early because the whole thing felt wrong and people didn't want to celebrate anymore. Kelsey said at least 15 classmates asked her for my number because they wanted to check on me. I told her she could give it to them. Then I showed her my timeline document and all the evidence I'd collected. She read through it, her face getting harder with every page. When she finished, she looked at me, her eyes burning, and said this was absolutely insane and my mother was out of her mind. I agreed. Then I went to bed, but I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about my mother inside that party, erasing me while I stood outside in my cap and gown. I kept seeing Haley in my honor cords, thanking people for supporting her educational journey that she never finished. The injustice of it all burned. My phone lit up with a notification at 7 o'clock in the morning. Facebook. I opened it and saw my mother had posted a huge album of photos from the party. Every single one featured Haley. Haley cutting the graduation cake. Haley posing with relatives. Haley wearing my honor cords and holding a diploma that wasn't hers. The caption said, "So proud of my graduate," and tagged Haley. The comments were already filling up with congratulations from aunts and uncles and cousins and family friends. Everyone telling Haley how proud they were and how far she'd come. My stomach churned. I took screenshots of everything. Then I checked my regular messages. 37 new texts from extended family. All of them congratulating Haley, asking about her plans, telling her they always knew she could do it. Not a single message mentioned me. I got out of bed, made coffee, and sat back down at my desk. Then I opened my evidence folder and found my official diploma scan and photos from the actual ceremony. I started with my grandmother. I wrote her a message explaining that I was the one who graduated yesterday, not Haley. I attached my diploma and 3 photos of me in my cap and gown receiving my degree. I wrote that I loved her and I was sorry for any confusion, but I wanted her to know the truth. Then I copied that message and sent a version to every single family member who'd congratulated Haley. 37 messages, each one polite and factual with proof attached. I didn't mention my mother or accuse anyone of anything. I just stated facts and provided evidence. The responses started coming in within minutes. My grandmother asked if I was okay and when I could visit. She said she'd always known I was the smart one. My uncle sent a laughing emoji and said he figured something was off when my mother kept avoiding questions about my major. My cousin asked why my mother would do something so weird. Each response made me feel a little less invisible, a little more real. By noon, I had replies from 28 family members. Most were shocked. A few were angry at my mother. 3 said they'd suspected something wasn't right at the party. I saved every message and added them to my evidence folder. Then I opened a new document and started writing down everything I remembered from the past 4 years. Every time my mother downplayed my achievements. Every time she talked about Haley's accident and how much the family sacrificed. Every time she mentioned the settlement money paying for my education, like I owed her something for it. The document grew to 8 pages. I included dates when I could remember them. Kelsey came into my room around 2 o'clock and asked if I wanted lunch. I showed her what I was working on, and she sat down and helped me remember more incidents. She recalled my mother missing my honor ceremony junior year because she had to take Haley to a doctor appointment that turned out to be a regular checkup. She remembered my mother telling people at family gatherings that I was doing fine in school, but never mentioning my actual grades or awards. We worked on the timeline together for 3 hours. When we finished, it was 17 pages long and showed a clear pattern going back to my freshman year. I called my sister and told her I needed to talk to her in person. She agreed to meet me Monday morning at the coffee shop near campus. Then I spent Sunday night researching academic fraud and credential misrepresentation. I found cases where people had been sued for claiming degrees they didn't earn. I found articles about parents living through their children and stealing their accomplishments. I printed everything and added it to my growing folder of evidence. Monday morning, I got to the coffee shop early and ordered tea. My hands were shaking, so I wrapped them around the hot cup, needing the warmth. Haley arrived exactly on time, wearing jeans and a sweater that used to be mine. She sat down across from me and immediately started apologizing. I held up my hand and told her I needed her to listen first. Then I pulled out my phone and set it to record. She looked nervous but nodded when I asked if it was okay to record our conversation. I asked her to tell me everything my mother had said about the graduation party. She took a deep breath and explained that 3 weeks ago, my mother told her I wanted to share my graduation day, that I felt guilty about the accident settlement paying for my college while Haley had to drop out, that I thought it would help Haley's confidence to be celebrated at the official party while I went to a smaller family gathering. Haley said my mother showed her the honor cords and said I specifically wanted her to wear them for photos. She said my mother created the fake programs herself and told Haley it was my idea to have both our names included. I asked her if she really believed that. She looked down at her tea and said she wanted to believe it, that it felt good to be celebrated after years of feeling like the family disappointment, that my mother had been so convincing about how much I wanted to do this for her. Then Haley started crying. She said she knew deep down something was wrong, but she didn't want to admit it. She told me that my mother had been favoring her since the accident, using guilt about the settlement money to manipulate everyone, making Haley feel like she owed the family something while also making her feel special for being the one who suffered. Haley said she'd been in therapy for 6 months and was starting to recognize how toxic the whole dynamic was. She said her therapist had been helping her see the patterns of manipulation. I asked her why she went along with it if she knew something was wrong. She said my mother made her feel like she was finally getting the attention and pride she deserved. That for once, she wasn't the daughter who dropped out, but the daughter being celebrated. She said she was sorry, and she knew that wasn't an excuse, but it was the truth. I stopped the recording and told her I appreciated her honesty. Then I explained that I was taking this to the university and possibly to a lawyer, that I needed her to be willing to tell the truth if anyone asked. She said she would. She handed me my honor cords that she'd brought with her. They were in a plastic bag and looked exactly like they had at the ceremony. I took them and put them in my backpack. We sat there for a while, not talking. Then Haley asked if we could ever fix our relationship. I told her I didn't know, but I needed time and I needed her to stand up to my mother when it mattered. She said she was moving out of my mother's house next month, that she'd saved enough from her job to get her own place. I told her that was good, that she needed space for my mother's manipulation, just like I did. We left the coffee shop and hugged awkwardly in the parking lot. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Monday afternoon, I had an appointment with the legal affairs director at the university. Her office was on the 3rd floor of the administration building. I brought my entire folder of evidence, including the recording from Haley. The director was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and serious eyes. She introduced herself and asked me to explain the situation. I laid out everything methodically: the party, the fake programs, the honor cords, the social media posts, the family messages, the recording of Haley's confession. She looked through every piece of evidence carefully, her expression growing more severe with each document. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and said this was one of the most clear cases of academic credential fraud she'd seen. She explained that while the university couldn't control what happened at private parties, they could take action when someone was actively misrepresenting who earned a degree. She said the fake programs were especially serious because they used university branding and false information. I asked what the university could do. She said they could issue official statements clarifying who actually graduated. They could send formal letters explaining that misrepresenting academic credentials is illegal. If my mother continued or tried to use the false credentials for any kind of gain, the university could pursue legal action. She asked if I wanted them to send a letter to my mother. I said yes, a powerful surge of defiant satisfaction going through me. She called in her assistant, and they drafted the letter right there while I waited. It was formal and direct. It stated that Haley Winters did not graduate from the university, that Jade Winters graduated with honors, that creating false graduation materials and misrepresenting academic credentials could result in legal consequences, and that any continued misrepresentation would be taken seriously. The director printed it on official letterhead and said they'd send it certified mail that afternoon. She also said she'd make a note in my file about the situation in case it ever came up in the future. I thanked her, feeling like I'd finally done something concrete to fight back. That evening, my father called me. I picked up on the second ring, hearing his voice for the first time in months. He asked if I had a minute to talk, and I said yes. He told me my aunt had filled him in on what happened at the party, and he was sorry he hadn't been there. His voice sounded tired and sad in a way I hadn't heard before, heavy with regret. He said he should have been more involved during my college years, and he regretted being distant after the divorce. I told him it was okay, but he said it wasn't, that he'd let me down when I needed support. Then he said something that surprised me. He told me my mother's favoritism toward Haley had been an issue long before the party, that it was one of the main reasons he'd left. He said after Haley's accident, my mother became obsessed with making everything perfect for her, like she could erase the trauma by giving Haley whatever she wanted. He said it got worse over time, and I started disappearing from family conversations. My achievements downplayed or ignored while Haley's smallest accomplishments got celebrated. He said he tried to talk to my mother about it, but she refused to acknowledge the problem. Eventually, he couldn't watch it anymore, so he left. But he felt guilty for not taking me with him or staying more connected. I sat there on my couch, listening and feeling something shift inside me. Hearing him name the pattern I'd experienced my whole life made it real in a way it hadn't been before. He asked what I planned to do about the graduation situation, and I told him about the university letter and my lawyer friend. He said he supported whatever action I chose to take, and if I needed a real lawyer, he'd pay for it. He also said he was going to start reaching out to extended family to set the record straight, that he should have done that years ago when the favoritism started. We talked for almost an hour about my childhood and college years, filling in gaps and acknowledging things that had been ignored for too long. When we hung up, I felt lighter somehow, like having one parent who saw the truth made the burden easier to carry. Wednesday morning, my dad started making calls to family members. I knew because my phone started buzzing with messages from relatives, asking questions and expressing shock. My aunt called to say my dad had explained the full situation, including the years of favoritism, and she was horrified she hadn't noticed the pattern before. My uncle sent a long text apologizing for not supporting me more strongly at first and saying he was telling everyone the truth. By Thursday, the family group chat was exploding. I opened it to find over 200 new notifications. Some relatives were defending me and demanding my mother apologize. Others were saying I was overreacting and making drama out of a simple misunderstanding. My mother had sent multiple messages painting herself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter who was tearing the family apart over hurt feelings. She wrote that she'd worked so hard to give both her daughters a nice celebration, and I was repaying her kindness with cruelty. She said Haley was devastated by my accusations and the stress was affecting her recovery from the accident, even though that accident happened 3 years ago. Several relatives who barely knew the details jumped in to support my mother, saying family should forgive and move on. I read through the messages, feeling my anger build with each defensive excuse and guilt trip. I opened my photo app and found my official diploma scan, my valedictorian certificate, and photos from the actual graduation ceremony. I composed a single message to the family chat with no emotion, just facts. I wrote that I graduated summa cum laude on Saturday. I gave the valedictorian speech at the ceremony. I received my diploma at the official university graduation. I attached the photos and documents as proof. I wrote that anyone who wanted to verify these facts could contact the university registrar's office directly. Then I muted the chat and put my phone face down on my desk. I didn't need to watch the fallout or defend myself anymore. The evidence spoke for itself, and anyone who chose to believe my mother's version over documented proof wasn't worth my energy. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Haley. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. She wrote that her mother was having a breakdown and begging her to back up the graduation story. She said Mom wanted her to post on social media, confirming that she was the one who graduated and that I was lying out of jealousy. Haley said she told Mom no. She wrote that she couldn't do it anymore, that the toxicity was affecting her mental health, and she was moving out of Mom's house. She said she'd already started packing and found a small apartment she could afford with her job. She asked if we could meet again to talk about everything. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Part of me wanted to say no, to keep my distance from anyone connected to my mother's manipulation. But another part remembered the guilt in Haley's voice at our last meeting and wondered if maybe she was finally ready to see the situation clearly. I texted back that I could meet her Sunday morning at the same coffee shop. Sunday morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and ordered a tea. Haley showed up right on time, looking tired and stressed. She sat down across from me and immediately started talking. She said she'd been thinking a lot about her family and how things worked when we were growing up. She said after her accident, Mom started treating her differently, like she was fragile and needed extra care and attention. At first, it felt nice to be the focus of Mom's concern, but over time it became suffocating. She said Mom made every decision for her, controlled her schedule, and expected her to be grateful for the special treatment. She said she noticed how Mom talked about me differently, always finding small criticisms or downplaying my achievements. She admitted she'd been the golden child since the accident, but she was starting to understand how unhealthy the dynamic had become for both of us. She said Mom's need to make her the successful daughter at my graduation party was the clearest example yet of how twisted things had gotten. I listened and felt some of my anger soften. Haley looked genuinely upset and aware in a way she hadn't been before. She said she was sorry for participating in the deception and for taking so long to stand up to Mom. She said she wanted to make things right, but she didn't know if that was possible. I told Haley that I appreciated her honesty and her willingness to see the manipulation for what it was. I said our relationship would take time to rebuild because trust didn't come back overnight. But I also said I was willing to try if she was serious about setting boundaries with Mom and not letting herself be used as a weapon against me anymore. She said she was serious and she wanted to prove it. She pulled out her phone and opened Facebook right there at the table. She typed a post explaining that I was the one who graduated with honors, that she had worn my cords at the party as part of a family misunderstanding, and that she was sorry for any confusion or hurt caused by the situation. She showed me the post before hitting publish and asked if it was okay. I read it and suggested she remove the word misunderstanding because it made it sound accidental when it wasn't. She nodded and changed it to say she participated in something she shouldn't have and took responsibility for her part. Then she posted it publicly where all our family and friends could see. I watched the likes and comments start coming in immediately and felt something release in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was acknowledgement, and that mattered. The following Tuesday was the deadline for my mother to respond to the lawyer's letter. I checked my email and messages throughout the day, but got nothing. Wednesday morning, my lawyer friend called to say the deadline had passed with no compliance. He asked if I wanted to proceed with filing a civil suit for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I thought about it for a while, weighing the cost and time and money and emotional energy against the satisfaction of holding my mother legally accountable. He said we had a strong case with all the documentation and witness statements. He said the fake graduation programs alone were serious evidence of intentional fraud. I told him to send a follow-up letter, indicating we were prepared to file suit if she didn't comply immediately. He drafted it that afternoon and sent it certified mail. Tuesday morning, I woke up to an email notification from my mother. She'd sent a mass message to the family group chat and apparently copied me, even though I had her blocked. I opened it through the email preview and read her carefully worded statement. She wrote that there had been confusion about the graduation celebration, and she wanted to clarify that Jade was the one who graduated with honors from the university. She said Haley had attended as a supportive sister, and any impression otherwise was a misunderstanding of the event's purpose. She wrote that she was sorry for any confusion this caused family members and hoped everyone could move forward in love and unity. The message was classic passive-aggressive, framed her as a victim of circumstances rather than the architect of a deliberate deception. It wasn't the genuine apology I deserved, but it was public acknowledgement of the truth, and that's what the lawyer's letter had demanded. I forwarded the email to my lawyer friend and asked if this counted as compliance. He read it and said it was minimal, but technically met the requirement of publicly correcting the false information. He asked if I wanted to pursue the lawsuit anyway. I thought about it and decided I didn't. The fight had already cost me enough emotional energy, and pursuing legal action would mean months more of dealing with my mother's presence in my life. I told him to send one final letter stating that the matter was closed, but any future misrepresentation of my academic credentials would result in immediate legal action. He agreed and drafted the letter that afternoon. I felt relieved to be done with the legal process, even though part of me wanted more justice than a grudging correction. But I also knew the best revenge was moving forward with my life and leaving my mother's toxicity behind. I'd gotten what I needed, public acknowledgement of the truth and clear boundaries enforced by legal threat. Everything else was just noise. Professor Rivera emailed me the next Thursday with an invitation to a faculty reception happening that weekend. She wrote that the department wanted to celebrate this year's graduating class, and she specifically wanted me there as the valedictorian. I almost didn't go because part of me was just so tired of anything related to graduation. But Kelsey convinced me I deserved to be celebrated by people who actually cared about my work. Saturday evening, I put on a nice dress and drove to the faculty lounge on campus. Professor Rivera met me at the door and hugged me, telling me how proud she was of everything I'd accomplished despite the chaos. The room was full of professors and graduate students, and she walked me around, introducing me to everyone. When we got to the center of the room, she tapped her glass and asked for everyone's attention. She told the whole group about my academic journey, my research contributions, and my valedictorian speech. She said I represented everything they hoped to achieve as educators, a student who pursued knowledge with integrity and passion. People clapped and came over to shake my hand and congratulate me. Several professors I'd never met told me they'd heard about my work and were impressed. The department chair gave me a small gift, a leather-bound journal with my name engraved on the cover. For the first time since graduation day, I felt genuinely celebrated for what I'd actually done. These people valued my achievements because they understood the work that went into them, not because of family politics or manipulation. The university's communications office reached out 2 weeks later, asking if they could feature me in the alumni newsletter. They wanted to write a full article about my academic journey and include quotes from my valedictorian speech. I said yes immediately and met with their writer for an interview. She asked about my research, my favorite classes, my plans for the future. She asked what advice I'd give to incoming students. We talked for over an hour, and she took photos of me in my cap and gown holding my diploma. When the newsletter came out the following month, my article took up 2 full pages. They included my official graduation photo, quotes from my speech about perseverance and intellectual curiosity, and details about my summa cum laude achievement. My academic advisor emailed me a copy with a note saying she was framing it for her office wall. The article existed as a permanent public record of my accomplishments, something my mother couldn't erase or steal. I saved multiple copies and sent the link to everyone who'd supported me through the graduation party disaster. My new job at the Research Institute started in July. The hiring process had been straightforward because my credentials spoke for themselves. 3 professors wrote strong recommendation letters, and my transcript showed consistent excellence. On my first day, the research director introduced me to the team and mentioned my academic background. My colleagues congratulated me on graduating summa cum laude and asked about my valedictorian speech. Nobody questioned whether I'd earned my achievements or suggested I should share credit with anyone. They celebrated my success as mine alone, which felt strange after years of my mother's manipulation. During my first week, the team took me out for lunch to welcome me officially. They asked about my research interests and future goals. One colleague gave me a small plant for my desk with a card that said, "Congratulations on your graduation and new beginning." The genuine support from people who had no reason to lie or manipulate felt completely different from my family dynamic. I realized how toxic my normal had been when I experienced what healthy celebration actually looked like. Kelsey texted me in early August, asking if she could throw me a real graduation party. She said my college friends wanted to celebrate properly, without any family drama or identity theft. I told her yes, and she started planning immediately. The party was at her apartment on a Saturday afternoon. She decorated with balloons in our school colors and hung a banner that said, "Congratulations, Jade." Tommy brought a playlist of our favorite songs from college. Emily made a photo collage of pictures from our 4 years together. The cake was white with blue frosting and said, "Actual graduate Jade Winters" in big letters. We all laughed when Kelsey brought it out because the name felt like reclaiming something important. Everyone gave toasts about memories from classes and late-night study sessions. They talked about how hard I'd worked and how much I deserved this celebration. We stayed up late talking and laughing, and it felt like the party I should have had on graduation night. No stolen honor cords, no fake programs, no mother erasing my existence. Just friends who genuinely cared about me, celebrating my real accomplishments. When everyone left, Kelsey hugged me and said she was sorry my family was so messed up. But I had people who loved me for who I actually was. Dad called me in September asking if I wanted to have dinner with him and his wife. He said her family was visiting, and they all wanted to celebrate my graduation properly. I agreed and drove to their house that weekend. His wife answered the door and hugged me, congratulating me on all my achievements. Her parents and sister were there too, and they'd set up a nice dinner in the dining room. Dad made a toast before we ate, saying how proud he was of my hard work and integrity. He said watching me handle the graduation party situation with such strength showed the kind of person I'd become. His wife gave me a beautifully wrapped gift, a cherrywood frame for my diploma. She said she was honored to celebrate my success and wanted me to have something special to display my achievement. Her family asked about my job and my future plans, treating me like an actual person whose accomplishments mattered. Dinner felt warm and genuine in a way family gatherings never had with my mother. On my way out, Dad walked me to my car and apologized again for not being more present during college. He said he was committed to being a better father going forward and wanted to support whatever I chose to do with my life. 3 months after graduation, my life looked completely different from what I'd imagined. My job at the Research Institute was going well, and I'd already contributed to 2 published papers. My colleagues respected my work and included me in important projects. I'd made friends with several people on my team, and we got lunch together regularly. Nobody tried to take credit for my ideas or diminish my contributions. The distance from my mother brought clarity about how dysfunctional things had been my entire life. I could see patterns I'd normalized, the constant competition she created between me and Haley, the way she erased my achievements to prop up my sister. Being around healthy people who celebrated success without jealousy or manipulation showed me what relationships should actually look like. I still had moments of anger about the graduation party, but mostly I felt relief at having clear boundaries. My mother had no access to my life anymore, no way to steal or diminish what I built. The space let me breathe and figure out who I was without her constant toxicity shaping everything. Haley and I started meeting for coffee once a month. She'd been going to therapy consistently and working on establishing independence from our mother. The first few meetings were awkward because trust takes time to rebuild after betrayal. But gradually we found a rhythm where we could talk honestly about our childhood and the dysfunction we'd both experienced. Haley got a job at a marketing firm and moved into her own apartment across town. She showed me photos of her new place and seemed genuinely proud of supporting herself. She talked about her therapy sessions and the patterns she was recognizing and how her mother had pitted us against each other. I appreciated her willingness to take responsibility for her part in the graduation party disaster. She never made excuses or tried to minimize what happened. She just acknowledged that she'd been wrong and was working to be better. Our relationship would never be what it was before, but we were building something new based on honesty instead of our mother's manipulation. Watching Haley establish healthy autonomy gave me hope that we could both break free from the toxic patterns we'd grown up with. My aunt reached out in October, saying she wanted to organize a family gathering to celebrate my graduation properly. She said she was inviting relatives who supported me and specifically excluding my mother. The gathering was at her house on a Sunday afternoon. My dad came with his wife, and several cousins showed up along with my grandmother. My aunt had decorated with congratulation signs and set up a table with cards and gifts. Everyone hugged me and apologized for initially believing my mother's story about Haley graduating. They said they should have questioned things more carefully instead of just accepting what she told them. My uncle gave a speech about how proud they all were of my achievements and how much I'd overcome to get my degree. Several relatives handed me cards with money inside, saying they wanted to contribute to my future since they'd missed the original celebration. My grandmother pulled me aside before we ate and told me she had something special for me. She reached into her purse and pulled out a velvet box containing her pearl necklace. She said her mother had given it to her when she graduated college decades ago, and she wanted me to have it now. She said I'd earned it through hard work and integrity, qualities that mattered more than anything else. I put the necklace on, and she hugged me tight, telling me she was sorry my mother had tried to steal my moment, but nobody could take away what I'd actually accomplished. The gathering felt small compared to the massive party my mother had thrown, but it was filled with people who genuinely cared about my achievements. We ate and talked and laughed, and I felt celebrated in a way that actually meant something. I bought a nice frame for my diploma and hung it on the wall in my apartment living room. Next to it, I put photos from the actual graduation ceremony. Me in my cap and gown holding my diploma, me with Kelsey and our friends, me giving my valedictorian speech. I added the engraved journal from the faculty reception and a copy of the alumni newsletter article. The whole display took up most of one wall, and every time I looked at it, I felt proud. These were my achievements, displayed in my own space. A declaration of independence from my mother's toxicity. Nobody could walk into my home and pretend someone else had earned these things. The evidence was right there on the wall, permanent and undeniable. My grandmother's pearl necklace sat on the shelf below the frames, a symbol of family who actually valued me. Sometimes I stood in front of the wall and remembered standing outside that party in my cap and gown, locked out of my own celebration. The contrast between that night and where I was now felt huge. I had taken back my story, and my achievements belonged to me alone. Dad started calling me every Tuesday afternoon, asking when I could meet for dinner. The first few times I made excuses because I wasn't sure I was ready to rebuild that relationship after years of distance. But he kept calling, kept asking, and eventually I agreed to meet him at a small Italian restaurant near my apartment. He arrived early and stood when I walked in, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. We ordered food and sat there awkwardly until he finally started talking about how he should have been more present during my college years. He said the divorce from my mother had consumed him, and he'd let that become an excuse for not being there when I needed support. I told him about the research I was doing at work and my ideas for future career paths. He listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions instead of just nodding along like he used to. Over the next few months, we established a regular pattern of meeting every other week for dinner. We talked about my goals for graduate school and his regrets about prioritizing his career over family when Haley and I were younger. He apologized for not recognizing my mother's favoritism sooner and for not protecting me from her manipulation. Our relationship felt different now, built on actual honesty instead of the surface-level conversations we'd had before. He told me he was proud of my achievements and meant it in a way that felt real. The dinners became something I looked forward to instead of dreaded, and I could feel us both committing to being better at this relationship. Haley texted me in November saying my mother wanted to talk about reconciliation. She'd been asking Haley to pass along messages for weeks, trying to use her as a go-between. I told Haley I wasn't ready to have that conversation and might never be ready. Some relationships are too damaged by betrayal to fix, and I'd accepted that my relationship with my mother might be one of them. Haley said she understood and wouldn't push me, but Mother was making her life difficult by constantly asking for updates and trying to manipulate her into arranging a meeting. I suggested Haley set her own boundaries about being used as a messenger, and she admitted she'd already started telling Mom no. The attempts at reconciliation continued through Haley for another month before my mother finally seemed to accept I wasn't responding. I felt guilty sometimes about cutting her off so completely, but mostly I felt relief. The peace that came from not having her toxicity in my life was worth more than any relationship we might have salvaged. I'd spent years trying to earn her approval and recognition, and the graduation incident had finally shown me that nothing I did would ever be enough for her. Professor Rivera emailed me in December, asking if I'd like to meet for coffee to discuss my career plans. We met at a campus cafe, and she asked detailed questions about my research interests and long-term goals. She offered to write recommendations for graduate programs and said she had professional contacts in my field who might be interested in my work. Over the next few months, she introduced me to researchers at other institutions and helped me understand the application process for doctoral programs. She told me during one of our meetings that how I'd handled the graduation situation showed maturity and strength that would serve me well in any field. She said many people would have fallen apart or handled things with pure emotion, but I'd been strategic and documented everything while still standing up for myself. Her mentorship meant more than she probably realized because she celebrated my achievements without trying to claim them or diminish them. She saw my potential and wanted to help me develop it, which felt completely different from my mother's approach to my success. I started thinking seriously about graduate school applications and what I wanted to study, knowing I had strong support from someone who genuinely believed in my abilities. 6 months after graduation, I got called into my boss's office expecting a routine check-in. Instead, she told me I was promoted based on my research contributions and the quality of work I'd produced. She specifically mentioned my integrity and thorough documentation abilities, saying those skills were rare and valuable. I smiled, thinking about how those abilities had been tested during the graduation disaster. My new position came with more responsibility and better pay, and it felt like validation that my achievements were real and recognized by people who actually valued competent work. The promotion happened faster than typical because my boss said I'd already proven myself capable of handling advanced projects. I called Dad that evening to tell him the news, and he sounded genuinely excited, asking questions about my new responsibilities and congratulating me without any awkwardness. I thought about how different this felt from my mother's party, where she tried to give my accomplishments to someone else. This recognition was mine, earned through my actual work, and nobody could take it away or pretend someone else deserved the credit. Kelsey came over to my apartment to celebrate the promotion and brought wine and takeout. We sat on my couch, eating and talking about how crazy graduation night had been. She joked that she had the best party story ever about the time she witnessed someone's mother try to steal their graduation. We could laugh about it now, even though the hurt had taken months to fade. She told me she still couldn't believe my mother had actually tried to pull that off, and that watching me handle the aftermath had been impressive. Kelsey said most people would have just exploded or given up, but I'd been strategic about reclaiming my achievement. We'd stayed close friends through the whole mess, and she'd been one of my main sources of support when I felt like I was losing my mind. She reminded me of specific moments from that night that we could laugh about now, like when the bouncer kept insisting I wasn't on the list while I stood there in my cap and gown, holding my actual diploma. The absurdity of the whole situation was easier to see with distance, even though the emotional impact had been devastating at the time. I found a support group for adults dealing with narcissistic parents and started attending meetings twice a month. Hearing other people's stories helped me recognize patterns I'd normalized growing up. The way my mother had always downplayed my achievements while building up Haley wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a lifetime of manipulation. Other group members shared similar experiences of parents who couldn't celebrate their children's success or who pitted siblings against each other. Understanding the psychology behind my mother's behavior brought some peace because it helped me see that her actions weren't really about me. She had her own issues that made her incapable of being the parent I needed, and recognizing that didn't excuse her behavior, but it did help me stop taking it personally. The group facilitator talked about how children of narcissistic parents often struggle with self-worth because they were raised to believe their value depended on their parents' approval.